Griffin, it's that time again. The Catholics versus the Convicts.
Yeah, this seems to be just like some of those amazing matchups back in the 80s, that amazing run-heavy offense of Notre Dame versus the stout defense that has a lot of swag with that turnover chain in Miami.
And we saw that plenty of times last week.
Oh yeah, they're a team that's forced 20 turnovers on the year. They get after the ball, they get the ball. They've been extremely successful at it this year, and Notre Dame's looking to really change the pattern. Notre Dame's played against a lot of other top high-quality opponents. They've played 4 teams that are currently ranked in the top 25, so they're no stranger to being in the spotlight. They're used to that big game. They're used to being in the moment, especially this team specifically. Their rushing offense has been absolutely amazing this year, one of the top in the entire country. They also stop the run on defense. They control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line is big. Their defensive line is almost as big and powerful and physical. And they're really able to just be more physical than their opponent and push the other team off the ball, getting a couple yards of free, easy runs every time on offense. And on defense, never giving up even just the smallest inch.
Well, Miami passed their first big test last week with a huge win over Virginia Tech. But here comes the second test, and that Notre Dame physicality is certainly going to be the biggest they've seen this season so far. But one thing Miami does really well, creating turnovers, and you always see a defender run over to the sideline to grab that turnover chain. We saw it 4 times last week, making up for Miami's 3 offensive turnovers. It's all about timing for Miami. They may not have the best or the strongest defense out there, but they seem to stay in position, and they are really good at reading that pass trajectory and limiting the offensive progress, as they did last week against Virginia Tech. Then you have the offensive line. Their rushing hasn't been the go-to for the Hurricanes, but they stepped it up last week and created the gaps needed for the running backs to really make a difference against Virginia Tech, because they were not able to get the offense going.
No, they had a lot of struggles on offense, which surprised me a little bit. I knew Virginia Tech had, a really good defense, especially that front 7, but I expected Miami to at least stretch them out a little further. I know Miami's quite a bit faster and more athletic on the outside with those receivers. I expected them to use that a little more than they did, but, they got the win, so that's all that really matters. Miami's really had a problem this year in close games, though. Not necessarily in winning or losing. They're still undefeated, but just the fact that the game is close has been kind of embarrassing. They've struggled against some lesser opponents in the ACC, and there's really no excuse for it. They seem to have a problem getting ahead and staying ahead. This last week was one of their biggest wins of the entire season as far as point differential, and it'll be interesting to see if they're able to continue that trend and get ahead and stay ahead throughout the game, or if they're going to be in more dogfights. They seem to be one of the luckiest teams of the season, kind of that team that everyone's just like, how do they keep winning? Their run defense definitely isn't helping them win any games anytime soon. They only allowed 102 yards versus Virginia Tech, which is their best performance all season, and they're really going to need to keep that up against this running attack of the Fighting Irish.
Last week we didn't see it too much from Malik Rozier, but he has been an effective quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes this season, and that could be the game changer here against Notre Dame. Notre Dame places the emphasis on the rush defense, and they lack in the secondary. Now, Malik Rozier had a shaky performance. He didn't do the best. We saw him lacking in the fundamentals these past few weeks. He's not following through with his passes. That's leaving them short, making them incomplete, and creating interceptions for the defense. If Notre Dame can take advantage of this, then Miami could be in trouble.
A key part to that Notre Dame, especially taking advantage of the turnovers, is Brandon Wimbush. He doesn't look extremely polished as a passer, especially when you just look at his stats with only 1,300 yards and only 11 touchdowns at this point in the season. That's not very good. But when you take into the account that he has 640 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns on the season, that makes him look a lot better. He's a true dual threat quarterback, and he plays smart. He only has 2 interceptions on the year. He's kept the ball, he's possessed the ball well, and he's helped this Notre Dame offense get going when the defense seems to key in on those running backs. He can just take it on the outside and take it in himself.
Travis Homer really stepped up for Miami last week. That 64-yard touchdown showed early on that Miami was in control of that game. I mean, look at him break through the Virginia Tech defensive line like there's no tomorrow. He's Rozier's main man, leading the Hurricanes in both points and total offensive yards. He's going to be a game changer in this game.
He plays angry. He has that Marshawn Lynch beast mode just attitude about him at this point in the season. It's been really interesting to watch him develop.
Well, Miami, you've certainly gained my respect a little more after last week, but I think I'm going to go with Notre Dame on this one. They have the rush defense down pat, and Rozier struggled to get the passing game in control for Miami. This is definitely their biggest test this season. If they can get through this unscathed, the Hurricanes are looking at a great season, possibly a bid to the playoffs, but I don't think that they're going to be able to get through this Notre Dame team.
A top 5 opponent is, never easy. Playing at home is definitely going to help Miami, and they do seem to have luck on their side this year. I'm still going to have to go with Notre Dame. They just look too good on offense. Their offensive line, defensive line are just too much for this Miami Hurricane team.
These next few weeks, as we near the college football playoffs, are just going to keep getting interesting as they have starting 2 weeks ago. You have teams and crazy matchups that are just going to produce upsets, various results people don't see coming. And you also have teams that are top programs but have been struggling this year, Florida, Florida State, who are fighting for a chance to even get a bid to a bowl game.
Yeah, and you're going to see those teams like Iowa who really have nothing to lose come out and play their hearts out, and that causes a lot more upsets later in the season.
But if you like this week's episode, feel free to check out some of our others. We'll join you next week. I'm Janae Muchmore.
And I'm Griffin Parkrose.
Thanks for watching RedZone to EndZone.